Good morning, folks. We're going to get started with our program here in Biddeford just momentarily. If you've had a chance to pick up a program for the day, they're over on the table as you're coming into the room. But on that program, we noted that every remote location is going to have their own kind of location-specific introduction. And here in Biddeford, we're lucky to have the Mayor, Alan Casavant, join us. I'd like to have the Mayor come on up and say a few words of welcome. Thank you.
Good morning. It's certainly a pleasure to be here, and I want to welcome all of you, whether you're here or out there. Strange times indeed. If you've been to Biddeford before, I'm sure you've noticed a lot of changes, probably including me. I think since the last time you were here, I've gained like 10 pounds, and you might say it's the COVID calories, but really, it's part of my job description. I have to eat in every new restaurant that opens up, and that's killing me, actually. But it's worth it. But seriously, there's been so many things happening here for a number of reasons. An individual tagged me on Facebook a few days back, someone I met once, but there was a community up in northern Maine that was saying that they were asking for individuals to offer suggestions on how to improve in this economy, what things to do to become better, and he tagged me and said to them, go to Biddeford. And the reason why is because so many things have happened here in recent years, probably some of them in spite of me, if not all of them in spite of me. But I look back, and there's a couple of key things I just want to share with you. One is that when I first became mayor, a department head pulled me aside. We have a great staff here. I think that's really indicative of what's happened. Pulled me inside and said, if you can guarantee or create political stability in Biddeford, you're going to find investment will come here. And for those of you that don't know Biddeford has always been very volatile in terms of politics. Former Mayor Sacco said to me when I first got elected 9 years ago, he said, and he was kind of bragging, he said, you know, Alan, let's compare things. In Sacco, we play touch football politics. In Biddeford, it's tackle, and you kick each other when you're down. We don't do that anymore. Not at all. In fact, the councils have been really, really good in terms of not taking anything personal when they're talking about any particular issues. It stabilized things, and I think that helped the investment. The other thing that's really interesting is that we did everything that most communities do, and I think it's important, you know, look at what's your assets. I mean, obviously the mills are our asset, our architecture is our asset, the University of New England is an asset, the coastline, whatever. But what we did something that was off the grid, off the radar. It created pride in community that was lost during the end of the Milltown era. So just a quick example, we put flower boxes in the downtown, a lot of them. And some people say, oh my God, what a waste of money, blah, blah, blah. But you know what it did? People started bragging about Biddeford. 10 years ago, 8 years ago, if you looked on Facebook where somebody lived, they would put in the Portland area. Now they put Biddeford because of community pride. And the evidence is everywhere. I mean, even in COVID, we're doing so many. The garage is under construction. The Lincoln Street Mill, $50 million project is under construction. You can see what this wonderful mill with Doug Sanford has done. Things are really, really doing well. And I think the centerpiece is because of pride in community. And I'd like to suggest that in COVID, if there's any blessing at all, is that people are now focused more locally. And I think that's going to be the secret to the economy in the upcoming years, where people support each other, whether it's in the stores or the restaurants, or even in terms of needs. Because let's face it, even in Biddeford, we've got our issues like every community does, but at least through volunteerism, we're working together. So again, thank you for being here. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm actually thrilled that you're all here. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Those are great comments. And I would also like to welcome everybody to the GrowSmart Annual Summit. This is an unconventional summit. I think we're breaking some new ground in the format of the event. And I am very excited about what we're going to talk about today and the event itself. Before we get too far into the program, I would like to acknowledge the unceded indigenous lands that we occupy at all of today's sites. I'd like to begin by recognizing that we're on the traditional lands of Maliseet, Micmac, Penobscot, Passamaquoddy, and Abenaki people. This is important. It's appropriate to recognize that, as one of the 14 states, I think, that recognize Indigenous Peoples Day that was just last week. But I would also like to note that one of the unique things about this conference is that we've got people connecting in person and remotely from multiple locations around the state. Also in person, also remote from their own desks, wherever they may be. These are challenging times. They're very unique times, but I think that there's opportunities that come with that as well. And one of the opportunities that is very evident with this program is that there are people attending who otherwise would not have been able to attend if this event was only in person here in Biddeford. So thank you to everybody again who's joining us, but I'd also like to thank our regional partners who are making some of those remote locations available to people. The Northern Maine Development Corporation and University of Maine and Presque Isle, the Eastern Maine Development Corporation and Bangor, Sunrise County Economic Council and Washington County, the Kennebec Valley Council of Governments, and the Snow Pond Center for the Arts, which is located in Sydney, and Stevens Commons and Hollowell. And I would ask that you join me in thanking those regional sponsors for helping to make some of those sites possible for attendees. And of course, this is also an appropriate time to recognize all of our sponsors for today's event. Without sponsorship, events like this would not be possible. I'd like to offer a special thanks to Central Maine Power, the Nature Conservancy, Bangor Savings Bank, Kennebec Savings Bank, Maine Housing, A New Development, and Wright Ryan. And these companies and organizations are located all over the state, are working to make Maine a better place, and I'd also like to thank them at this point for their sponsorship as well. So with just a few words about the program before I introduce Nancy to the podium, today's event is a shorter format event than past GrowSmart summits, but the format is also going to be extended virtually next week as well. So after today's program, we will be meeting again online as a follow-up to today's event. And we'll talk about some of those ideas that we talked a little bit more about today. First up, we have a couple keynotes this morning that I'm really looking forward to. We're going to be talking about issues that have long been at various points in the foreground and always in the background of conversations when talking about organizing and how we work in Maine. There will be some time for the keynotes to speak together as well, in kind of a trademark GrowSmart tradition. And then we'll be having local breakout groups here in Biddeford, as well as people joining us virtually and breakouts at individual sessions to talk about some of these ideas around regional solutions and the power of home rule. And finally, we will be having GrowSmart Awards. Always look forward to those. That will be happening over lunch this year, which I also always look forward to. And at this point, I'd like to introduce Nancy Smith to come on up and talk a little bit more about the work that GrowSmart's been doing over the past year and what we're looking forward to coming up. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. It's so good to be with you here and here and here and here and here. It's an extraordinary day with our hybrid summit, and as part of that, we have our annual meeting, and one of the requirements in our bylaws is that I update you on our work. You all have seen In whatever location you're at or virtually, you were emailed our annual report for fiscal year 20, which is from July 1st of 2019 through June 30th of this year. I wanted to spend just a few minutes delving into some of the details and talking about things that wouldn't fit in that format. Primarily about the different kinds of outreach that we've done over the last year and some of the outcomes that have come from that. First off, in recognition of COVID and the issues that we dealt with, that we're all dealing with, GrowSmart Maine chose to offer free membership in our organization to municipalities across the state. So far, we've had 25 municipalities take advantage of that. Part of that membership is free admission to the summit, so we have some participating for the first time, which I find exciting. We knew that this was not the time to be asking municipalities to pay for a membership, but we wanted to stay connected and offer the resources that we have, and offering free membership just seemed to make sense, and I'm really pleased that so many took advantage of it. Another piece of outreach that I worked on for, I think, the past year was trying to find a niche for GrowSmart Maine to support rural communities that had opportunity zones. We know, and there's concern across the country, that smaller towns may not be able to take advantage of the investments that this program was designed to make possible. And in those conversations, I have yet to find a niche for GrowSmart Maine, but I met Philip Hussey as he was dealing with this issue while earning his MBA at Georgetown University. Philip is now one of our nominees for becoming a new board member for GrowSmart Maine. One of our longer-term collaborations has been with the Local Wood Works program. This is an idea probably 5 years old now that's housed at Kennebec Land Trust. The idea is to take the ethic we all know so well for buying local food and translating it to Maine's wood products community. GrowSmart has been a part of this from the beginning, one of about a half dozen partners. Over the last year, I got to know Kirsten Brewer when she was working at Kennebec Land Trust, and she is our second nominee as a new board member today. I think 2 years now, I've been in conversation with John Wigan and others at the Snow Pond Center for the Arts in Sydney. There's this wonderful idea of a multi-town economic development plan based on arts and culture as economic drivers, smart growth, and quality of place. While we have yet to find the funding needed to launch this, the partnership is there, and it's one of the reasons that Snow Pond Center for the Arts is one of our venues today, because of the relationships established. One of our most significant collaborations is as part of the Maine Broadband Coalition. We've been a part of this from the start. I work both in the advisory council on the structure of a coalition, as well as a leading role in policy and advocacy. You'll read in our update, of course, one of the biggest wins is a 75% affirmative vote by the people of Maine for a $15 million broadband bond this summer. The pandemic has made it even more clear that we need broadband for everyone. And again, with GrowSmart, I look, what is that niche, what is our unique voice, and it's how do we address this need for essential infrastructure without accommodating sprawl? And how do we work with communities so that their rules in place will make room for broadband as we all need it, but with continuing to have growth where it's with development that already exists for all of the benefits. The Economic Development Council of Maine, GrowSmart Maine has been a member now for a couple of years, and it gives me the opportunity to connect with economic development professionals at the municipal level and the regional level, as well as to connect with our regional planning commissions. And again, those relationships and getting to know folks is part of the reason that they have taken the leap of faith with us today and sponsored our satellite locations across the state. I'm excited by all of that. The Maine Alliance of Smart Growth is a program of GrowSmart Maine. It is one of our key focuses now and into the future. The vision of the program is that each of us works in our silos, and often silos get dissed. Now, I'm 20 years on a farm. Silos have an important role. We do our work in the silos. This is good. Every once in a while, we need to get out of our silos. So in the Maine Alliance of Smart Growth, whether people are focused on their municipality, historic preservation, downtown revitalization, land conservation, farmland, we do good work in our offices, but to come together and acknowledge the interrelationship and interdependence of those things is essential. Honestly, it's the strength of GrowSmart Maine. We're the one place in the state where we talk about historic preservation and farmland conservation could never be seen as competing efforts. They work together to keep Maine being extraordinary. One of our outcomes this year for the Maine Alliance of Smart Growth is the Smartinis event. Smartinis are 90% networking and fun, 10% mission. They were supposed to launch in April. Clearly that didn't happen. But in August and then in October, we had these small events. They're intended to be no more than 20 people as a chance to see smart growth on the ground. So we have walking tours or scavenger hunts. Downtown Augusta, where our office is, there were, I think, 15 examples we easily had of smart growth. Stevens Commons in Hollowell was the host in October, and they were able to demonstrate both open space with hiking trails owned by Kennebec Land Trust, as well as the reuse of this campus that was I believe it started as a school for wayward girls, and has evolved into mixed-use, extraordinary location. So the Maine Alliance of Smart Growth will continue to be a priority for us into the future, even as we're being COVID compliant and having them outdoors and limiting the number of people. Internally, GrowSmart Maine approved a 5-year strategic plan in January of 2019, and I can't even say it without laughing that having a 5-year strategic plan during a pandemic is amusing. But it still gives the guideposts that we need to make sure that we're on track. We can't let go of the work that we want to do while we are all, one of the phrases I've heard is that we all pivot until we're pirouetting, because it's a constant pivoting to try to remain relevant, remain in business, and do good work. With all of that, our goals for 2021 are to build on the work that we've been doing. We know that we're having an impact. We do advocacy, events, and community engagement. In the coming year, we will even more particularly focus on racial equity and climate change. These are not silos. These are not things that we do on certain days with certain programs. For all of us, these need to be woven into all of the work that we do if we're going to have any relevance in the outcomes that we create. My board and staff have had the extraordinarily interesting, exciting, uncomfortable conversations about both of those issues that are essential if we're going to engage and make a difference here in Maine. I'm looking forward to 2 particular programs as we go into 2021. We partnered with the Island Institute over the past year to take their energy efficiency toolkit and launch it statewide. This is a community campaign that will lead to boots on the ground assistance for communities to have. Initially it was weatherization, which doesn't happen during a pandemic, so more broadly into energy efficiency. We're also taking that model of an informational workshop and coupling it with that boots on the ground technical assistance for housing choices for a well-rounded community. If you were at our summit here last year, Jeff Levine was one of the presenters at a breakout session on this theme, and what we found is there's an incredible demand from communities. As they're looking at community revitalization and economic development, some forget that housing is an important part of that, and there are tools and strategies for communities. So we're looking forward in the coming year, as we adapt to COVID, to being able to bring that to communities across the state. So I hope that you'll read the annual report. It's one of the handouts you have, or one of the PDFs that was emailed to you if you're virtual. That's a little bit more in depth on what we're doing, and is, I think, an important part of the annual meeting component of this day. And with that, we're going to dive into the program of the day. Jeff Levine is going to introduce our first keynote speaker, and I thank you all again for being here wherever you are today. Thank you.
Thanks, Nancy. Thanks, Ben. It's so exciting to actually be at an in-person event. And I think it's a testament to the common sense approach that people in Maine take about so many things, that we're all able to follow rules and do events like this. Everyone's wearing a mask. We're all being responsible. And that's really, one of the things that's great about this state, and why I'm so optimistic about the future of Maine. Briefly, the topic today is really on how home rule, which is traditionally seen as a very insular thing, can integrate with smart growth and with regional planning. And that starts off seeming like a very exclusionary sort of set of things. New England has this strong tradition of home rule, which basically means that cities and towns can do whatever they want as long as it's not outlawed by the state. And when I moved to Minnesota, when I was younger, I was shocked to find out that's not true everywhere in the country. And it really was quite a sobering assessment. It seemed so much easier to do regional activities when you didn't have that ability for communities to be sort of ornery and come up with their own ideas. But on the flip side, I think there's a real opportunity there, and I think that's what we want to explore now. Maine is actually one of the strongest home rule states in the country. There's different levels of it, and Maine's pretty much brought it up to 11 to some extent. There's a lot of things that even other states with home rule don't allow cities and towns to do. But again, with that common sense approach and the idea that things like regionalism make sense and can actually save cities and towns money, that's what makes me optimistic. And it also makes us bring this topic to the summit this year, because we want to explore that with you and with our speakers and sort of figure out how we can turn that into an opportunity. I want to introduce Colin Woodard first and bring him up as the first keynote speaker. A little aside on how I learned who he was. I moved up to Maine about 10 years ago from the Boston area, and one of the first things I did was read The Lobster Coast. And if any of you haven't read that book, I highly recommend it. It really helped me understand so much about this state and give me so much respect for the people here. So I'd highly recommend that. In addition, Colin has done a lot of reporting, a lot of places, but you probably know him most through his work with the Press-Herald regularly. He's also written American Nations, which is a really fascinating look at how the United States really is essentially 11 rival regional cultures. Another piece of what I'm looking forward to hearing him talk about is that sort of tension between home rule and regionalism. Number of other accomplishments. We're very lucky to have him, and I want to invite Colin to come on up and let him talk. Thanks very much.